Chief Data Officer at Sprift Technologies. That's a relatively small prop tech startup, been going about 5 years. We have around about 30 people onshore, similar number offshore, and our aim is to basically be the best, most authoritative data provider for UK property. We have thousands of clients around the UK, estate agents, surveyors, lots of property professionals. We're just moving into financial services to support mortgages, etc., etc. So we're growing significantly. And at the back of the room, we've got two previous nurture students who are on this course. Well, you've just finished, Suda, who's just finished, and Mahan, who graduated a few months ago. They both joined me as data scientists to help drive what we're doing forward. So, as Lucy said, I'm not going to talk about anything technical. Yeah, when I was doing my degree, we were using Lotus 123 for DOS, with no mice or anything like that, just keyboards. Back in last century. Let's leave it there. So I'm not going to go into any data science stuff. You've got much better people like Nathan's who can take you through that. This is about some of the scars that I've picked up, some of the lessons I've learned over the last 30 years or so with data, and why, just because you happen to be the data expert, the data professional, why people won't necessarily listen to you. Yeah, I've got the scars, literally, too much typing over the years. But this is the sort of thing that most people think about when it comes to data. Yeah. Data governance, data security, data storage, all these wonderful, fantastic, fascinating things that get us out of bed on a morning. And we just love to talk to people about. Don't talk to people, not with people, because it's very hard to get the business to engage in any of this. All business people, or anyone that's in an organisation, whether it's business, charity, government, I've worked with all three. All they want to know is why. What's with them is something you'll come across time and time again in your careers. What's in it for me? Your typical business person, the typical person you're going to be working with, doing data science for. Anyone seen the Roadrunner cartoons? Always running about 100 miles an hour. They're not sitting around waiting to have an in-depth conversation about data science, confusion matrices, or any of the more technical terms that I won't use in this audience because I'll just embarrass myself by pretending I know what I'm talking about. They're not going to be sitting around, they're going to be running around trying to deliver what they're there to do. So when you're engaging with them from a data science point of view, you need to bear that in mind. And that's the sort of thing I'm going to cover over the next 20, 25 minutes or so. So that's the biggest challenge, helping them understand what's in it for them, how your data science can help them, and getting their attention in the first place as they go whizzing past facing the latest issues or the latest opportunities. But the biggest opportunity you have as data scientists is to give people time back and to make them happy. That may sound a bit daft, but most people, and I've stood in front of a number of boards when I've been doing information transformation programs, and ask the directors to put their hands up if they've got enough information to run the business the way they want to. I could count on the fingers of one hand the number of individuals that have put their hand up. In fact, that's how many. No one ever has the information they want. That means they feel at risk. It means they feel they are making decisions they're not sure about. It means that they're not awfully happy because something can come back to bite them, or they've got to spend a lot of time understanding where the information has come from. And the finance director may have data that his team prepared. The sales director may have data that his team prepared. The two do not match. So you spent half the board meeting saying, sales aren't as good as you say they are. Oh, yes, they are. Well, why are the numbers different? So if you get it right, you put a big smile on their faces. If I've got time, I'll give you a quick case study. But you can give them time back because you can give them confidence in the information you're providing to help them make their decisions. And if they've got time back and they're not having to work till 11 o'clock at night, they're going to be happy with they're going to be happy with you. They're going to be more happy at work. And understanding human psychology is key to data and key to acceptance of data. If people are happier, they'll take more risks. And data science for most organisations is still a risk. I know we've been talking about it and it's been implemented for a decade or more, But you can go into large PLCs, and I have done, because before I joined Sprift, I was an independent consultant. So I used to go in and work with boards to sort their information out. You might be surprised the number of £1 billion plus turnover companies that don't understand their basic performance metrics. So if you don't know exactly how many people you employ, you don't know exactly what your sales are, why are you going to take a risk on data science? Yeah, you're working with that low level of information confidence. The good news is data science has the potential within days to turn people completely around. I've seen it happen. I haven't done it myself. I'm not a data scientist. I'm a chartered accountant by training who has picked up a smattering of SQL and other VBA and other outdated technologies over the years. So that's the biggest opportunity. Give people time, make them happier. They're more likely to deliver their outcomes. If they're more likely to deliver their outcomes using information that you've provided, they're more likely to come back and ask you for more. Because what you'll probably find is that the first thing you're asked to do is quite basic. It might be just replicating something they already have or confirming their beliefs from their 20, 30-year career, that these are the key drivers, the key features of a particular market or a particular model. So you create a model that says, yeah, the 3 things you would expect if it's sunny, ice cream sales go up. Not rocket science, but it builds the confidence with your business stakeholders that you are confirming their beliefs, you're getting on side with them. So before I go any further, just a quick Sprift. We've got our customers are very nice. They say we're the kings of data. They let us save a lot of money. We won an award on big data. We're nearly 30 million residential properties in the UK. We have several hundred data points for each. That's a lot of information that we can go after, a lot of information to create data science models and even more basic things. So we work with property professionals, utilities, government. We create insight, we support research. Yeah, you can go into one of our dashboards and see everything there is about property, how much it was like to cost to rent, how good it is at its EPC is for energy, planning permission, everything to do with property is all there in one place. There's hundreds of data sources, hundreds of opportunities for it to go wrong, and hundreds of things that we have to integrate every day, every week, every month. But now we have Sudha and Mahan and Sarika, who can't make it today. We can start building our own insight. So what we've done so far is we've created dashboards that just aggregate information from the government. That's great, but it's not really a competitive advantage. Someone else could come along, get the same data, build similar dashboards. Where data science can give us an opportunity, if you land it right, if you position it right with your stakeholders, is to create that defensive moat of time by creating our own intellectual property, our own insights. So if we can predict things like how long it will take to sell a property to a reasonable degree of accuracy, that's really valuable information for an estate agent, for a solicitor, etc. That's something Mahan did. If you can look at how environmentally friendly a property is, and you can predict the amount of carbon, the amount of energy you're going to need for a property, again, that's useful information. That's something Sudhi's been helping me with. That helps build insight that is useful for us that no one else has. So if you get it right, your data science can not only make people happy, it can make the company, the organisation far more effective. You can have a material impact on the organisation. But in order to land it, 4 key concepts. Data is used by people. You're going to get lots of technical stuff on your MSc. I'd recommend you spend some time reading up about decision making and the softer skills and how people make decisions. I did my master's dissertation a few years ago, quite a mature student. At graduation, the director basically wrote intent for the staff, not the students. But we sorted that one out. I did that on the value of information. And the bulk of that was how do you actually align it with people's needs, the way people process information, etc. It's well worth looking at that, because if you don't understand your customers, internal or external, you're probably not going to land the information in the right way. You're not going to present it in the right way. You're not going to engage in the right way. They're less likely, as they go running past 100 miles an hour, to actually pick it up. Data science is a means to an end. It's not an end in itself. This might be heresy, and I hope I'll be allowed out of here after saying this, but it's only there to support people who are making decisions. It might not be people, it might be automated robots or whatever that you've got in your processes. But at the end of the day, people are programming those. They've got all the biases of people. It's there to support decisions, and data science can be a key part of the organizational toolkit. But most organizations don't have data science. That's why the government is helping with programs like this, because there aren't enough data scientists out there. So it's likely that if you go into an organization, as Susie and Mahan have done, where you've got someone that thinks data science is a good thing, but yeah, I've heard of Python. I ate one in Southeast Asia once, and that's about it. But what you need to bear in mind is, this is a great book, The Other Side of Innovation by Govinda Rajan and Trimble. Their key model, I'll say if you're reading 250 pages, is that the bulk of your organisation is optimised to deliver what it's there to deliver. So a university is there to get students out the door, to help them learn, to graduate with good degrees and find jobs afterwards. Tacked onto the side is where the change people are, the innovation engine. And that's probably where data science is going to sit, because you're offering opportunities to rip up the old certainties and create new ways of working, new ways of thinking about the organisation, new ways of thinking about its markets and customers. Problem is, that innovation engine is probably even smaller than that. I wanted to make it large enough so you could read the text. So you've got a tiny little innovation engine, and then you've got the bulk of the organisation, 99.9% of it, is there with their experience of doing what they do today, and they generally do it pretty well. So it's how you engage that performance engine and how you align your data science with that, to get them to engage and to actually make your data science useful in the performance and help them get on that transformation journey. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend Chairman Mao for many things, but a journey of 1,000 miles starts with a single step. That single step is you getting your first data science model. It's some model of the performance engine that will use it and start acting as an advocate for you. And it's like when you throw a small stone into a pond, the ripples gradually start to spread. You won't go into an organisation and be given, here's an unlimited budget, go and do data science everywhere. You'll start small, but find a friend somewhere in the performance engine, do something that helps them, that builds your credibility, gives you the right to be in the conversation and the right to be heard, and gradually build out from there. Don't try and do too much too quickly. If someone like me comes along and says, I need a valuation model for UK residential property and I want it 98% accurate and can have it in 3 days, manage my expectations. It might take 3 weeks and it might be 80% accurate, but that's fine. It's a start. We can build on it with the features and things. But you've got to be realistic. If you go in and say data science can solve the world's problems or the organisation's problems, it can't. It can provide information for decision makers to then solve the problems. But always remember, you're there as part of that organisation. You're part of supporting that. You're part of the decision toolkit. So, data science and people earn the right to be heard. What's your credibility? The fact that you've come to Salford, you're doing this MSc, that gives you a great big green tick in the box as far as I and other business people be concerned. You've got the technical skills. You've done something very, very difficult. You've been through a project, a nurture program. You've demonstrated you can apply them in the business. Those are all great things from a recruitment point of view. But you start again once you're in the business. And that's where these softer skills, the understanding of people, are the things that will be critical in achieving that. It is possible. You can change the context. The reason I've got a picture of the monkey up there is one of the things that I did with one of the boards I was working with. Once you've had a bit of experience, you realise board meetings tend to happen in the same room every month with the same packs of paper. People sit in the same positions and they have the same conversations. What you can do, especially with data science, is change the context a bit. What we did was put a large yellow monkey, soft toy, not real, on the desk in the middle. So as they walked in, they went, "What's that?" So it's a large yellow monkey. Why? Well, it's jolted your thought patterns out of the normal. We're going to turn the pages. We're going to spend ages on finance. We're not going to get to the interesting bits at the end because we never do. Because we had the monkey in there, they were talking about things in a different way, and it got the meeting off to a different start, and it was a much better outcome. The next time we took the monkey away, but took the chairs away as well. So they had to stand up, which gave them an incentive to stop the long speeches and waffling and rabbit on. And they got through it in half the time. Yeah, just by changing the context, the way you present the information through data science, yeah, we can predict with 85% certainty that these 10 customers are going to go bankrupt, which is one thing I did in one company, or had done for me in one company. That changes the way people think about, oh, well, these are good customers, they spend a lot of money. Yeah, but they're also bad customers, they're not going to pay you the money. So you can help change the context, change the way people think. And I don't know about the main data science, but I'm probably not in an authoritative enough position to change it across the world, because data is just, yeah, it's there. Information is what we're looking for. Information is what helps people make decisions, changes people's expectations. Your product of your data science should be an information outcome that supports the decision. If you get it right, you can reduce the cognitive overload for people, because instead of me having to read a 20-page document and try and think about all the different permutations and spot patterns and things for myself, you can come in with a couple of slides or a couple of demos with whatever tool it is you're using. You can show me what the patterns are, what the decisions are that I could potentially make from this. And that means I can much more quickly assimilate that information, and I can make those decisions faster. If you reduce cognitive overload, your brain is a muscle, or the equivalent of a muscle, analogous to a muscle. You spend all day trying to think through the path to the decision. You're potentially not going to make the right decision because your brain is exhausted when you get there. By having the data science present the information and the predictions in a way that suits the personality type, you're going to have more time to make the actual decision, back to giving people more time, making them happier. They go home more awake, more alert, etc. If they're happier, morale is a force multiplier. I'm not going to get into politics, but if you just look at what's happening in Ukraine at the moment, you've got one bunch of troops that don't know what they're doing there, and are currently getting there, are currently heading in a backwards advancing direction. And you've got another lot that know exactly what they're there for, defending their homes. Their morale is much higher, and though they're less well equipped and there's smaller numbers, they're actually winning. That makes a difference in business as well. And if people feel happier when you walk through the doors and know you're going to give them information that helps them make decisions, etc., etc., you're in with a chance. Think also about keeping it simple. You don't need what you're going to be presenting. The work you're doing is good enough in the message it's giving without needing fancy three-dimensional charts, fancy presentations, etc. Yeah, use a simple tick rather than a complex one. The complex one takes more of your brain muscle to process. So keep it simple. Let people focus on the information, not how fancy it looks. I'm not sure it's still in print, but there's a great book by a guy called Stephen Few, FEW, called Information Dashboard Design. The examples are about 20 years old, but it's still entirely relevant in terms of how people process information, etc. It's worth looking at from how you tell the stories. And again, what's in it for me? If you're doing all that, people can see, people know what's in it for them. They get something, they get it quickly. So I've talked a lot about supporting decisions. How do we actually help people with data science? First thing is, what is the decision? It's not always obvious. Sometimes people, I'll give you an example in a minute, or it may be obvious on the surface, but you then have to unpack what they're actually thinking about, how they actually look at it. How is it made today? What data is used? Or is it well, I was out for dinner last night, I was in a good mood, so I'll approve this project that was marginal. Whereas if I'd been out for dinner last night and the waiter had spilled wine all over my shirt, I'd have come in a bad mood and know this is a marginal project, I'm not going to approve it. but hopefully there'll be some data in there and you can provide more data, more information. And key question to ask people, what would help you feel more comfortable when making that decision? Yeah, it might be, actually, I've got the data, but I don't understand where it comes from. So I'm not sure I want to rely on that data, or I don't know how good the data is. What's the quality of it? How complete is it? How timely is it? All those good things that, yeah, you can assess technically using Python, etc. We'll draw a veil over what Sudi and Mahan have found on some of the Sprift data, but that is just something else. Always never expect the data to be as clean in business in the real world as it is in the curated data sets you get on your MSc. On the MSc, it's there to help you apply and understand the techniques. In the real world, it hasn't been nicely curated to help you. You're going to have to sort out some rather interesting, messes. Let's call it messes. But if you ask that last question, what would help you feel more comfortable? If you've got lots of tools in your data science kit, whether it's assessing the data quality, being able to fill gaps, present patterns, identify key features, that will help people become more comfortable. And if they're more comfortable, morale goes up, etc., etc. You get the point. So, putting the decision in context. This is a model that I developed about 15 years ago that I've used in a number of large transformations, PLC level. And what we're all aiming for is outcome. We've got to deliver the outcomes, whether it's for a charity, it's to get people out of poverty, for a government, it's to collect taxes, for a company, it's to make profits, cash flow. Those outcomes are generally assigned to a role, such as finance director or CDO. So one of the outcomes I have to deliver is data that our clients need when they need it, in the form they need it. Then there are a number of accountabilities within the role. Once you get into business and you start looking at job specifications, this sort of thing is beloved of HR departments. Then those accountabilities are exercised by making decisions, which may come from an amorphous blob of data or may appear to be on a dashboard or a nice PowerPoint pack, but they've probably got somebody working very hard with Excel till late in the night behind them. And that data is generated by processes, whether it's an ERP system that all your billing is on, or it's a more manual process. But the other processes, they generate data, use that for decisions, and that helps you deliver your outcomes. If you think about the decisions you're supporting in that context, what it means is you are going to be aligned to the what's in it for me, because you're helping people deliver their outcomes. You're not just delivering a model for the sake of it. Someone asks you for a model to do X, and you go through that thing, you think, actually, the model should deliver Y. Have that conversation with them, because you'll know more about what's going on down here and the capabilities you've got, so you can help them deliver that decision in a way that makes them more comfortable and makes them more engaged with you. So a very quick example. One outcome for any company is don't run out of cash. That goes to the chief finance officer or the finance director. That's the role. The accountability is cash management. They have to, she has to decide how they're going to invest cash, how they're going to pay creditors, when they're going to collect money from debtors, how large they're going to be, to make sure they don't run out of cash. Lots of data from there. But in order to align to that performance engine that I was talking about a few minutes ago, the outcome is going to be the board, it's going to be the strategy team. They're the ones that are accountable for the outcomes. The roles, HR, the org design teams will love you if you're supporting roles. Ditto accountabilities. If you work in the nuclear industry, or like I have, or the oil and gas industry, or finance, you will have regulators crawling all over you to make sure you have the right accountabilities in the right roles. So if you can align what you're doing to say, I'm going to support this accountability of yours that will keep you out of jail, that's a big whiff. And what's in it for me? I'm going to help you stay out of jail. And then CDO, CIO, people that like data and systems and things and actually generating all this, can you to help support that decision making. And then the processes are the big part of that performance engine. The functions, finance, HR, manufacturing, marketing, sales, whatever it is. And you've also got things like change and Lean Six Sigma. So this is where This is primarily where you're going to sit. Build a little innovation engine that takes the data and supports the decision making. Think about it in this context, you won't go far wrong. So this is an example I've used a lot in London and other places. It might be slightly less relevant here. Yes, I need to go to Manchester. It's there, isn't it? Wherever. Yeah, it's just down the road. Oh, that's what you think when you look at it. But when you unpack it, you say, okay, why do I need to go to Manchester? Which Manchester am I talking about? There are 26 Manchesters around the world. It may not be this one. It may be Manchester, Ohio, Manchester, New Hampshire, Manchester, Ohio, Manchester, wherever. When do I need to go there? What's the budget I've got? What modes of travel are available to me? Any issues to take into account? Fear of flying. Okay, how does that relate to data science? Well, if someone's been burnt before with a Markov chain or whatever, they might not know it was a Markov chain, but just bear in mind that if when you're understanding your stakeholder, and they say, oh, data science, that was dreadful in the past. Okay, why? Why do you think it was dreadful? How can I make sure that what I deliver isn't? Yeah, budget, modes of travel, what data have you got? What tools have you got that are available? Where are you setting off from? It's something people often forget. But, so we'll have a roadmap. You don't know where you're starting from. And a roadmap with a journey without the start point is just a map. Yeah, you don't know where you might know where you're getting to, which Manchester, but you don't know where you're going from. So you don't know. That provides the context which modes of travel are appropriate. If it was Manchester down the road, okay, you might get the train from Salford Crescent. You probably wouldn't be looking to fly. You probably wouldn't be, water skiing, whatever it is. You would focus on that. So as you answer these questions, it hones the way you're going to generate the information and the way you're going to present it. Who do you need to take with you on the journey? Which stakeholders, which process owners are providing the data that you need? Which members of the IT team are providing the data that you're going to need access to? Are there any regulatory things like GDPR? Is there any personal information in what you're doing? Are you doing anything that might be considered unethical with your data? One test, whenever you're doing something about people's data, when I was at British Gas, we had the ability, if we wanted to see when people were going on holiday, because you could tell the change in patterns of electricity usage from their smart meters. Ask yourself, is that something I'd be comfortable someone else knowing about my family, about my parents, about my children? If it doesn't pass that test, you shouldn't be doing it to data that involves other people. And that's your insurance, making sure you're not going to do anything that gets you in trouble with the Information Commissioner's Office, etc. I've said it a few times, it's part of the organisation toolkit. You've got people, you've got technology, you've got process, you've got information. Data science can link all of these, but you've got to look at it through the people prism. If you go into a bold presentation with a 20-page slide pack, unless you've been asked to, I see Sudi panicking a bit because that's what she did at the end of her nurture program. That's because we asked for it. If you go into a 20-page slide presentation, of which the first 19 slides might help me out here. We've done this statistical test, and this is the confusion matrix, and this is 83%, and this is because that was a 0.96 R squared or chi or whatever. Please don't wince anyone that knows what they're talking about. That's 19 slides of life that no one's ever going to get back. What they want is to go to the 20th slide that says, we're confident that we can predict this with this degree of certainty because we followed good practice methodology, whatever. That's how you fit in there. That's how you followed the right processes. You've got data in an ethical way. You presented it using the company technologies rather than going off and downloading something yourself and potentially breaching GDPR, etc. Tick, tick, tick. This is my result. This is how I did it without getting into the detail. By all means, have an annex if somebody wants to ask those questions. You can quickly run them through it, but don't make it front and center. You're there in the room because you're the expert. You're trusted. If you've got that, you need that level of detail in case they ask any questions about it, but don't present it as the primary thing. The primary thing is, how does my work help your decision making? Then Lean Six Sigma, I haven't got time to go into that, but there are 8 wastes of manufacturing. which make downtime, if you're a bit creative with the first letter of the fourth one. It's worth just Googling that later and look at that, because each of those 8 wastes that have grown up over the last 50 years that Lean Six Sigma's been going, they also apply to data and data science. Over extra processing, are you doing work that's higher quality than required? If all I need as a CDO is a quick model that says, yes, this looks like it's a practical thing to go forward and invest some time in, you've got 2 days to demonstrate that you can pull together a model that makes approximate sense. Great, that's all I need. Don't go away and come back 2 days later with a 3-month plan to develop the final thing. I don't want that. Listen to what your stakeholder is saying. If they want something quick and dirty, do something quick and dirty, and then explain to them how you could make it better and how much longer it would take and why they would get more confidence, but match their needs. So, in summary, talk outcomes, not data science. Earn the right to change the organisation toolkit and embed your skills and techniques in there, and give people time and decision comfort by listening to them, by thinking about their psychology, by how they want to make the decision or would make them more comfortable. And that is slightly over time, but questions? Everyone's still awake, or did I say no, decision comfort too often?
I might ask us to get the ball rolling. I might pick on Suda actually and just ask her a question. And so, with you doing your lecture program, like project with Craig and Sprift, and then what was the thing that you would say, like maybe the 2 things that you learned, like the biggest things that you hadn't learned at masters that you learned at Sprift?
Hello everybody, my name is Sudi. Right now, I'm 1 month. I did my lab project and dissertation with Sprift company. I learned a lot from it, you say that. Well, spending time here doing my master in data science was a great benefit for me. It had many things which I didn't know, because my background was not in computer science or data science or something like that. I graduated civil engineering. I knew about programming languages. I knew about Python. I learned something about data analysis, especially geospatial data. I did the experience in analyzing the geospatial data, but nothing in general data analysis. So I've learned a lot from this course, data science course, master. Thanks a lot to Dr. Kaveh, Professor Mo, and other lecturer and assistants here. So I have started for my life project, taking some data from Sprift company. What I have learned there was the most specific subject which I have learned there, that data sets are not pure, they are not clean, as Craig said, and there's something you should consider in working in real world. So something which helped me a lot in this path was using Sprift's methodology as a very shiny way to know what to do. So it was very important to work with someone who shows you what's the correct path, what's the and you know that this way goes to the very good results. So I took this as a very good lesson. I asked Greg, and he helped me a lot in this path to know what to do, where to start, where to finish. So that's the biggest one. The second one is that the second lesson I have learned is that, you know, you may know many things, as I learned many things, many topics, but what is important that the first tools is very important to use. You should know which tools you should have to use, you know. For example, if you are expert in, as you know, for example, in AWS, in Azure, in Databricks, maybe you have experience in many aspects, but it is important to know that which is the best to use in this area, you know. And it was all, it was a great journey for me. I can't express myself, especially in English. I can't express myself in Persian. It's hard for me to express. But it was just, I can say, it was great. I had 16 years experience in data analyzing, geospatial data analyzing, but these 3 months and 4 months back, it was something I can't explain for you. It was very, very good, very beneficial for me, actually.
Yeah, that's great.
Sorry, I'm so bad.
No, that's great. I'm really glad that you said about the dirty data and the fact that it's not clean, because every year, every cohort, I talk about it and I say you're going to get the surprise of your life when you go into the company and you do your nurture project, and you're going to go, this, you know, when you're used to getting, you know, all neatly tied up in a bow, and Professor Mo goes, ta-da, it's like your birthday. One Rose coming out singing happy birthday, you're like, oh, that's my data, thank you. And then you get to the nurture project, and they go, oh, it's over there, go and find it, and you're like, what? And then you don't know anyone there, you've got no friends, you've got no ally, you've got nothing. You have to start from scratch, and you have to be able to, you know, build those blocks, right? How do you get the data, you know? And then when you get it, you're like, oh my God, I wish I hadn't found it, because look at it, it's such a mess. And then you have to pull it apart, right? And then you have to find a way to make it into something that you're going to be able to, you know, model and do something creative with. So I think that is the biggest learning, and the repeated learning from every single student that goes into a company and does their project. It's not the kind of data in the shape and form that you're used to. So expect the worst, all right, and be pleasantly surprised if it's anything decent. I spent months talking to the companies saying, please get the data in some good shape. Their idea of good shape is maybe very different to Craig's, right? And every company is different, because every company is working on different thresholds and different matrices. I can't say it. Matrix.
Different ways of working. Yeah.
Help me.
Matrices.
That's the one. On that word, yeah. So it's a really good lesson. And I remember when I met Sudha, she was just like, I think you've been a CEO of a company and you've built like amazing like dams and bridges. And she's like, Lucy, I don't sleep. I have like 4 hours sleep. Like, I just want to work. And then I just kind of knew she was going to be great for Craig, because with the GIS knowledge, but I also knew that Sudha had energy and enthusiasm and a spirit to learn. And I can't say that enough about what you need to be giving to, you know, your clients, is that you know, curiosity, that enthusiasm, and that kind of, you know, not workaholic stuff, but the open-mindedness to be able to like open up your brain and go, okay, all right, let's go down this let's go down this path. And I remember speaking to Craig over the months when he had the students, and he's like, yeah, they're going down some rabbit holes. I'm just waiting to see when they're going to pop their heads back up and go, why did we do that? But it's all about the learning, right? It's all about the journey. And the professors, and the academics at the university, this is where it's slightly different, is that they'll always say it's never about the destination, right? Like, your company that you go in and do the project with, they'll have like an idea of where they want you to take that data, right? And they're hoping they'll get some valuable insight that hopefully might impact their bottom line, or it might help them on the reverse side and say, actually, we don't want to spend loads of money and resource going in that particular direction because actually it's not going to be profitable for us. So actually the nurture program could actually save them a ton of money in the future because they're like, we don't want to go down that line, and the nurture program has showed us that it's not going to be a good win for us, so we're going to go down this route. So there are all different ways to look at it, but it's definitely being open-minded, being curious, and having this agility in your brains and being humble with it, right? And I know, you're kind of like movers and shakers in the data science world, and you're probably feeling like a bit of a rock star right now, and you're almost at the end of like where you're going to be. But you kind of, when you go into a company, is that you need to think like you're back to day one, right? And you need to look at everyone with a perspective that they're going to help you and teach you. So you need to be teachable. You need to be able to be humble to learn. And I think that's a really big thing. And one of the hashtags that I have on LinkedIn is like always learning. And I have a mentor, in the States, and he always like says, go to bed a little bit, cleverer than when you woke up this morning. Learn something. Keep telling them I'm going to learn how to play chess, and I just haven't got around to it yet, but it's on my list to do.
So one suggestion I'd make as well is that you start applying this when you're applying for your projects. I've interviewed a lot of students over the 4 or 5 years in various companies I've been working with the nurture program. The ones that succeed are the ones that have thought about what the outcomes are, that are not just regurgitating the project brief, that are saying, this is the sort of thing I can do with it. It might not be the right thing, but if you can show you've thought about it and you've got a couple of suggestions about, okay, great, I've actually engaged with your projects, I've thought about your outcomes. I'm not just cutting and pasting the brief back into the application. Yeah, demonstrate how, I can help you get time back, how I can make your decision more comfortable, because you won't get it right because you're looking at a 1 or 2 page bit of A4, but it's far better to come up with some ideas and some proposals that you can present and discuss in the interview than it is just saying, well, yeah, I can do the predictions because we've covered chi-squared Markov chains and whatever it is. You sort of don't hit the interview with the technical stuff. Say, well, yeah, so you want to predict this for these reasons. We've got these tools and techniques that I've covered. I'm comfortable I can do this, but have you thought about doing it in this way? Would it help if we did it like that? Show that you've engaged with the projects that you're applying for. That makes a big difference. Those are the sort of things that you want to cover up, prepare for the interview. Don't just sit on the, we did it all over Zoom the last lot because of pandemics and such like, but don't just sit there and replay my words. Yeah, my words are so double testify in my hand. I may have started off thinking this is what I want to do, but they help me shape the actual outcomes, because they say, well, actually, we don't want to do it like this, but there's a better way of doing it. Is there? Oh yeah, great. Thank you for educating this dinosaur. So we actually end up in a slightly different place and a better place because of that, talking outcomes and challenging and bringing the techniques to the table, but in an outcome context, not in a chi-squared whatever context.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because we're working really hard to bring your, to publish your projects in the next couple of weeks. And then we're opening the doors this year. God, I'm probably going to really regret saying it, but you're going to be able to apply for as many projects as you want, which has never been done before. And it's quite scary because it's a lot more work for us, but we really want to open it up that you can apply for lots of different projects. But that will mean that you will have to, be unique about it as well, and be thoughtful, and don't apply for 55 part. Joking. You know, and you want to apply for 5 or, you know, 1, or 2, but you want to really think about those ones, right? And you really want to care about them and give everything to that. And we're giving you time to do that. Obviously, you can talk to me and to Nick and like maybe talk about choices, but you know, we're opening it up so you can. But like Craig said, you don't want to bore them, right? And you don't want to just cut and paste everything back. You don't want to plagiarize. Last year we had 3 students that cut and paste the same thing and sent it to the same client, and it didn't get noticed, and it was my client. It was just terrible. So we can't also do that, right? You're all bright, you're all smart, you're all here, and you're all here for a reason. So you must give your own work, right? And your own self, okay? And remember what I said? What do I not want to see? Like data is the new oil, right? Don't disappoint me, right? Be creative, okay? Don't want to see that. And now it's like done. All right, we're over that phase and now we're going into the next one. Yeah, anything else, Craig?
Just to say that data science is about thinking. Yeah, don't go straight into the tools, don't go straight into the data. Think about the problem, think about the context, think about ways you could tackle it rather than just applying your favourite tools and techniques. Yeah, because it's that thinking that adds the most value. I think it was Eisenhower in the Second World War said, yeah, the planning is useless, but the process of planning is invaluable. Yeah, because by going through and thinking it through before you start, you're not going to go down quite as many rabbit holes. You always end up in a few. Yeah, it doesn't matter how experienced, how many grey hairs you've got, you'll always end up going down a rabbit hole or something at some point. I can guarantee it. But if you've thought it through, the rabbit holes you go down are more likely to be slightly relevant ones, or you avoid some of them. So think it through, do a bit of planning. Yeah, you don't need to go into full Microsoft project Gantt chart with 260 activities for an 8-week, 10-week project, but show that you've thought it through, approximately how long it's going to take for each section, etc. All that sort of thing is just demonstrates that you're thinking about it, you're engaging with it, and you're more likely to be successful.
Yeah, and I think, you know, those critical thinking skills. So who was here for the workshop where we did the marshmallow towers? Put your hand down. Okay. All right, so only just this side. You guys missed out on the marshmallows. All right, was there anyone from the winning team? Okay. So what can you remember, like, I mean, obviously you're just going to say that you guys were amazing and you just like lost it, but can you remember any particular part of that process that you think, in your own words, that made your tower like the winning tower?
We got to strengthen the form of our town. That's an issue that was really sturdy. Trying to do it.
Exactly, right? Now, I did the same towers with my kids before I came to Manchester because I was like prepping, because I like to be organised, right? But I mean, my towers were terrible, and I kind of cheated. I got sellotape, and then I literally sellotaped the marshmallows to the table. You did that. I didn't see that, so you hit that, but that's good. And I thought, yeah, that's what I would do. So it's like building a house. If we were architects, right? You've got to have solid foundations. So that's what we have, like with problems and, you know, with our data science work and everything that we do in business, is that we have to have a solid foundation. Because when things go wrong and things happen and we have recessions and COVIDs and all sorts of things that go wrong, we need to make sure that we've got a really good baseline to keep going back to, and it's solid, and we've got tangible benefits that we can keep drawing back on and processes that work. So I think, you know, the marshmallow towers was good and well done for winning on that. And I think, you know, that whole thing of when we talk to our clients about coming to work with the nurture program, one of the things, and hopefully I'm not lying about this, I'm like, you're going to get fresh eyes, like, and new people looking, you know, through a different lens, looking at your business problems. That maybe, you know, they're gonna come up with something that's a brand new way of thinking and a brand new kind of design for something, and they get excited. So I really like push this train of thought and say, you know, the nurture program is about bringing these bright new minds and bright ideas and future data leaders to your company when they're, you know, just getting started. And I think that's really exciting for them, for the clients. And I think definitely they want to see this creativity and this curiosity, right? Mixed with this, you know, I'm giving you a lot of things to do as well as getting, you know, your masters. So it is a big ask, you know, and we're not lying, it's hard work. But I really think it will pay off. And I think, you know, we've got lots of people that have come through the program, and then loads of people that don't go through the program, but they learn from the benefits of working with us. And then, you know, they get these great jobs, you know, eventually in the industry. And, you know, it just keeps rolling. And so later on, I'm going to meet with somebody from the NHS that was sat here where you were 3 years ago, and is now a client for me. She's now one of my clients, and she was a student 3 years ago. Now she's the one writing the projects to give to you guys next year. So it's amazing. So I look at all of you respectfully and think, hopefully, in a few years' time, you're going to be building your teams, and then you're going to be coming back to me saying, oh, we want the nurture program, what can we do together? And then you're the one doing the project scope and doing the exciting ideas for the next generation of data scientists. So what I said about those foundations, really important that we grow them, we nurture them, and we keep working together. And also, you know, I just want you to get the best out of everything. Okay. Yes, Mark.
Okay, so just first of all, I want to thank Greg and Lucy for really taking the time to come here. Also thank the student.
Yeah, it's amazing. Great to
when I told you, if you let me handle it, I don't know. That's
I need to be more scary, right? That's what I
And so I think that really there was a time 2 years ago, 4 years ago, when we started to work with Lucy, and there were so many live projects, not even enough students, so we kind of force people to have live projects. But now these days we have a lot of students. Really doing this sort of activity is amazing, because I talked to colleagues across university, and no one in this university or in the university actually managed this sort of kind of workshop and bringing people from industry and all this. So I think we should be very thankful for Lucy and Greg and everybody really organizing this. And thanks to Greg, he's really been working with you and you've got few of our students.
Greg is so successful now with the nurture program and hired so many, can't do that. Right? Because he's got his data science literally like bit in the hand that feeds me, right?
I have one question for you though. Look, I spend half of my time in the interview panel, but I interview a lot, and every week I have. And of course, it is academia. So somebody comes to become a lecturer, work for a project. I don't know if I'm fair. Sometimes I just, the moment that I see that person, the moment I see them on Teams or something, I can decide. I'm just saying, but there was a discussion that probably of Nathan happened about a specific student, and that student is absolutely hopeless. Yeah, there is nothing she or he doesn't know how to do things. And then we have this amazing student who's done very well, got our 80, 70. And then I'm sitting in my office, and suddenly I receive this email from that student, which I mentioned. 1 in a million, I don't, and then here you go. Can you write me a reference? Because I just been offered a position as a data analyst or data science in Manchester. And really happens. I'm talking about the student who we had a 2-hour exam. And when we do exam, when the student wants to go to the loop, so that we have one of the academics to follow the arrows. So I was waiting for him 45 minutes to come out of, and that's the sort of, but he managed to get a very good position. So why are we having strong students? We think it's the best data scientists, and you don't want them. And then the one we think is absolutely I feel knowledge.
Okay, most of our people.
Yes.
Are we recording this?
What is the thing that you want from people to, as a I mean, I'm sure it's not just the knowledge, you need something else, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing that we're looking for primarily is, a spark, a spark of independent thinking, the ability to think outside the box, and the ability not to be fazed when you're asked an oddball question. One of my favourite interview questions until the pandemic was, how many intensive care beds are there in the NHS? And you can see people looking at you and thinking, why are you asking me that? I've come for a business intelligence job at the Atomic Weapons Establishment, or I've come for a management information job at British Gas. Why are you asking me about the NHS and the intensive care beds? The reason is because that very quickly divides the sheep from the goats, the ones that I want from the ones that I don't, because it's not just the data that you will look at and think, oh my God, it'll be, or deity of choice, whatever. It's what you'll be asked to do. And so when I get someone that looks at me and says, I've got no idea, their name's gone, because they're not an analytic person. If someone looks at me and says, I don't know, but there are 60 million people in the UK, there's 10 intensive care beds per million, therefore there are 600. Fine, I didn't actually know what the number was. My wife didn't, she's a doctor. It didn't matter. It's that process of breaking the problem down, analysing it, breaking it into testable components. If someone can do that, I don't care what the actual answer is. We can go and test the individual bits. That's what the data science toolkit's for. You've shown me you can demonstrate, you can think on your feet, and you can have a sensible conversation about a left field problem. Yeah. That's the key thing that makes the difference. And I've worked in pretty much every continent over the years. I've worked in consultancy, in industry, in practice, with government. That's the one common denominator. I only recruited one person who fluffed that question, and they were out the door a month later because they just couldn't take the problem I was giving them, break it down, and then start work on it. You don't have time as a CDO, as a manager, as a head of whatever, to take the problem and break it down to the nth degree. That's what you need, people who can think outside the box for. If there are any whiteboard markers, I'd have given you a 9-dot challenge, but we can always do that later by email.
Yeah.
But it's thinking outside the box. Don't be constrained, as Sudi and Mahan were not on their projects, by the way I'd written the project scope or by the way I was thinking about it. So I'm thinking about it through an imperfect lens that says, data science, well, that's Python and prediction, isn't it? Yeah. Whereas actually it's like, you can stop shaking your head now, you've got the gym. Educating them. There's a lot more in the toolbox than that. So I want to be able to express a problem and an outcome and have somebody, even if it's something that they're not expecting, because that gives them the opportunity to show that they can think on their feet. And they can have those conversations when I send them out into the business to talk to a sales director or a HR director or an engineering manager or whatever. You don't have to be an expert in any of those. We won an award at AWE for our radiation monitoring analytics. I did A-level physics, that's as far as I got. But because I had a team that knew how to ask the right questions and engage and pick the brains of the actual experts and reflect what they needed, using all those soft skills I've just been through. That's what makes the difference. I've had people that haven't had degrees that have been brilliant. And if I go back to my professional training as a chartered accountant, I did a 3-year training contract in Manchester here. The firm shall remain nameless. That might be on my LinkedIn profile. So let's scrub up which firm it was at. But they were chartered accountants. We're the best. We're the pinnacle. We're the oldest institute, etc. Then you got management accountants. Then you got certified accountants. Then you got bookkeepers. Well, actually, in my training organisation, There was a chartered accountant who was possibly the worst finance people I've met in my entire career, including every country I've worked in around the globe. Dreadful. And there was an accounting technician who was absolutely brilliant. So that taught me very early on, don't look at the labels, give them the chance to demonstrate through these off the wall questions, the ability to think on their feet and see what they can actually do, as opposed to what their pieces of paper say they're being trained to do. That's probably
Yeah.
the main one.
I think that's a really good one. So those critical thinking skills, and like we're always like now saying to you, like to get your GitHub link and to put your projects on there. And often, like, and if you obviously you might be looking for a part-time job whilst you're studying, excuse me, and you go. And you go for an interview. Now, HR questions are centered around how asking questions to people that have got experience. So graduate recruitment is always a little bit skewed because people in HR don't know how to deal with people like yourselves if you haven't got experience. How are they going to find out those things, right? Which is also why being part of the program is great, because you've got 3 months demonstrable experience. You've got a talking point. You've got a place to start from, yeah? But it's very important that I've been talking to people around the business and saying, what skills are you looking for? I've been doing these recorded videos and I'm going to send them to you. And these are people that run companies, and the skills that they're looking for, so critical thinking is way up there. And it's also just about, being able to think independently, being able to manage themselves, right? And being able to think, well, okay, if I was in this person's shoes, how am I gonna, what are they gonna need for me to be able to help them, right? And asking better questions and just spending that time. And I think that I got really backed into a corner with a company the other day, and it was nothing to do with nurture, but nothing to do with this. But the problem is that I've got backed in a corner and I responded emotionally. And I just kind of agreed with the person, and the terms that the person was giving me was absolutely terrible and really messed things up for me. And I went along with it because I just felt backed in a corner. I didn't know what to do, and I never faced that situation. And what I learned 24 hours later was that if I'd actually just said, you know what, I'm just going to pause this conversation. We're going to come back to it tomorrow. I just need to think about it. Don't need to give you an answer right now. But because I was stressed and it was like some big person there and I felt, I'm a bit daunted, I kind of went into something and I just agreed with what they wanted to hear. It was a bad decision for me, business-wise. And then the woman phoned me and then I said, actually, God, I really made a bad decision. Could you hear me out? Because now 24 hours later, I've got a really good proposal. Would you like to hear it? And she heard it, and we're still thinking about what to do next. But I learned from business, I've been in this game for years and years and years, always learning, right? And you don't have to also give an answer. You can think about stuff. And I urge you to think and use those brains that you've been given, right? And you don't have to respond, right? You want to be able to, react pragmatically and give the best solution, yeah? So don't always feel backed in a corner if you've got someone like Craig saying, I need this now and I need some good ideas, right? Like you said, if you want something, dirty and quick in 2 days, that's fine. The model doesn't have to be perfect, right? But it just needs to show potential that, it's got arms, it's got legs, we could roll with it, right? You just need to show that that part of the possible is there with your ideas. Yes.
I've just got a general question for Craig. Going back to what you were saying before about dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Do you think that at the biggest organisations, there's still a reluctance to accept data science, or do you think it's kind of been phased out over the last 10 years?
It depends on the organisation and the appetite for change. Some large organisations like Amazon, they run on data science. Other large organisations like British Gas, there's a reason that their growth figures are relentlessly negative. It depends on the culture, depends on the organisation. But in a typical large organisation, there will be pockets of people that want to do this, and there'll be pockets of data science that are springing up. Some areas won't get it, some areas will. And it depends as well what the CEO's been reading on his in-flight magazine. Yeah, that's where a lot of ideas and a lot of change programs come from. Yeah. If any of you haven't come across dilbert.com, that's probably the best preparation for life in an office I can recommend.
Dilbert.com.
Yeah, Dilbert. It's a cartoon by Scott Adams about some very frustrated engineers in cubicle land. Yeah, if you want to see office politics and everything in a humorous way, yeah, I can thoroughly recommend those cartoons. But yeah, this, where you're going with nurture, those are organisations that are already engaging with data science. It'll be further down your career when you get to go to a greenfield site and say, yeah, once you've got a few years experience under your belt, come and set a data science function up somewhere like Sprift. Okay, well, what do you want to do with data science? That's when you start asking these questions. And there are peers of mine, friends of mine that have had interviews like that and have walked away from the role because the company aren't willing to commit resources, they're not willing to commit funds, they're not willing to recruit the right people. So it's very patchy.
Yeah.
Some organisations get it completely. Amazon, they're built on it. Some organisations don't get it, but there are pockets within those organisations, and whether those pockets grow or are snuffed out depends very much on the thought, the thinking skills, the soft skills that you bring to help business people engage with it.
I think that's a really good question, because I think, you know, I found by, you know, just all day, every day, I'm trying to get customers to come and do the member program. And a lot of it's always about timing. So loads of people are saying they're not going to do it because they're not ready, because they're just getting started on their data transformation journey. And they don't want to bring students in right now because all hell is going loose. Like, they don't know what they're doing. They're like in like Hell's Kitchen with Gordon Ramsay, and everyone's shouting and everyone's swearing, and they don't know what's going on. And they're like, we couldn't bring a student in right now because it's just not fit for service, right? And then they're going to build a team. They're going to get a senior person in, and they're like, well, maybe in a year's time we're going to be ready. Then there are some startups like, you know, Craig's business and like however many more that we've worked with that run on data. And it's often, I found it's the smaller organisations and the startups that are going, yeah, we need it. And they're the ones that have the CDOs and will invest because they understand, right, that the CTO, right, or very unusually would have the head for data, right?
So I think as the sort of invited speaker, I can get away with this. Yeah, data is the new oil. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't work on many.
I'm going to kick you under the table later.
It doesn't work on many levels, but if you think about one of the big things is about data literacy. Yeah, the LinkedIn groups I'm in, lots of data people. They're talking about data literacy. Everyone needs to be data literate. Well, we're in a carbon economy. How many people are carbon literate? How many people in this room have been on an oil rig? Okay, how many people have actually sort of looked at lateral drilling and, you know, stuck the pipes down? Okay, how many people have actually walked along a tarmac road today, or have put petrol or diesel in a car, or have turned a light switch on from electricity generated from oil? So how oil literate do you need to be to operate in an oil driven economy? How data literate do you need to be? Data scientists, you need to be very data literate. You're the equivalent of those oil rig workers that are getting covered in oil and covered in muck and drilling down to find the stuff that will power the economy. But but the people you're working with, they need to be able to choose put petrol in their car if it's a petrol car, or diesel if it's a diesel car. That's pretty off. Press the light switch, light comes on, press light switch, light goes off again. That's the level of oil literacy that we've needed. That's the level of data literacy that some people will need. That's your job with these soft skills, to keep them comfortable with that and not expect them to engage at the detail level. So you see, I'm not saying data is the new oil, but it's a good analogy.
All right, I'll let you get away.
Thank you. Of course, I'm in the corner now.
I got my boots on. Yeah, and I think, you know, this thing of, you know, data literacy, that's a very good point. And I think companies are, you know, they're getting their data dictionaries, and everyone, I'm on this sort of CDO WhatsApp group for the summer school, and the questions that they're asking, you know, and, you know, these are people going into jobs where they are CDOs, and it's a mess, right? And they're having to ask really basic questions. And what I'm wanting to kind of, you know, build up from you from the grassroots level up is teaching you to ask those questions now, right? So that when you, in a few years' time, you're not going to be where they are now, right? You're going to have this level of learning and experience that we're going to be able to, you know, impart with you. And I think, you know, data culture is also a massive thing. I'm going to finish in a second. Data culture, and you know, it's all about people. It's people. Obviously, robots will run the world at some point, but it's people right now, right? And it's very much, I think, we have to think about the people part of the organisation, and it's the people that will be the ones that will be engaging and making the decisions. And so technology is going to help, and the data is going to, you know, make us more enabled and efficient to make the decisions, but it's still a person at the end of the day. So we still have a big job to do to win hearts and minds, to bring those people on board. And so don't forget that. So the people that are really technical and just want to code in a basement and just, you know, order, you know, pizza from Deliveroo and not look up, you know, you're not going to be in the right place. You're going to need to engage, you know, with your stakeholders and get out there and be that person, that smiley face that people are going to go to and go, oh, you're going to give me time back out of my day and you're going to make things better. That's the person that you want to be. You want to be like that savior person. Even if they, you know, when I do a Teams meeting, I say, I'm going to give you 10 minutes back of your day. I'm going to finish this up in 15 minutes instead of 25. And they're joyous because they're like, can I have a cup of tea before my next meeting? Thank you. More willing to say yes to all of my demands as well, because I've already gone in and saying, I'm going to give you time back. And I think that's really important of what you're going to do. If you're going to give time back to these companies. So you need to be, you know, grown up and conscientious, curious, consistent. Yeah? Are we good? Okay.